Divine grace abide children. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. You can turn it down, otherwise it sounds like the voice of God. Anantapura Vaishnav Vrinda ki, Nam Char Shri Haridas Thakur ki, Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Go Bhakta Vrinda ki, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki, Vrindavan Dham ki, Mathura Dham ki, Dwarka Dham ki, Navadi Dham ki, Jagannath-puri Dham ki, Jamuna Mai ki, Ganga Mai ki, Tulsi Maharani ki, Bhakti Devi ki, Samveda Bhakti Vrinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, ISKCON Portland ki, Go Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the divine lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga.
HH Badrinarayan Swami Maharaj.
I'm always a little embarrassed by that. You know, the only way I rationalize that, His Holiness, is that I figure I'm full of holes. I'm full of anarthas. So His Holiness, in that context, is acceptable. What is this? All righty, Prabhu. Thank you very much. It's a nice garland. Acha. And what is that? All right. Thank you very much.
This is plain water.
I prefer this because if I use that, I'm going to spill.
Oh,
I'm not incompetent.
No,
I'm close to it, but not completely.
Sorry, I didn't mean that.
I'm
I
joking.
thought I can only in the cup.
No, this is fine. I saw that, but thank you very much. The feast has already started. Well, thank you for the invitation, and thank you for coming. You could be doing so many things with your time. All foolish, but I'm joking. Now, we have a big clock there. And so, now, whoever's the sound guy, this is the hardest thing to do. Don't touch anything. Just, otherwise they're always check, and feedback, and it's loud, and it's too, it's a small room, we don't need to be intimidating. Can you hear us in the back row? Yeah, I didn't think there was any problem. But, I appreciate it, don't get me wrong.
We hear you very clearly.
Okay. I can hear you clearly. No, we're in good shape. I think. Now, what is our usual? We speak for 35, 40 minutes and take some questions. Are more people going to show up? Do I need you guys to move forward? I don't bite. I'm vegetarian.
Please come forward.
Christian-tarian. Yeah. Pretend you're on an Indian bus. There's plenty of room. Because there's a direct ratio of how full the room will become based on what time prasadam is served. I've studied this very carefully, and there's a direct relationship. Now, and I don't see any potential crying babies. They're not here yet. Yeah, because otherwise it's a distraction for the audience. Now, with you on harmonium, I'm trying to change them. Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijanna Balava Girivandari. Gopijanna Balava Girivandari. Yasodanandana Janarandana. Yasodanandana Janarandana. Jamuna Gopi Janda Balava Divani. Jaya Gopi Janda Jastodanandana Janarandana. Jamuna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Oregon Ducks, it says on this shirt. Is that the local sports team? Usually they're the Falcons or the Vipers or the Tigers. I mean, the Ducks.
He's an Oregon.
It doesn't sound very aggressive.
The other competing team is the Beavers.
We're definitely in Oregon, aren't we? We're in the forest somewhere. Okay. The whole thing is silly in the first place. The idea that we are going to conquer over nature. I mean, it doesn't mean that we don't go to the doctor and we don't brush our teeth, or that's not what we're talking about. But the idea that we're going to conquer the laws of nature and no, not. I'll give you an example. How independent are we actually? Let's take a simple example. There's a self-made man, and John Wayne is the American archetype, and anybody here? Prabhupada said, "I'm speaking to you by the mercy of God, and you are hearing me by the mercy of God." Prabhupada said, I was sitting there. Prabhupada said, "You think you're sitting on the floor, but I am sitting in the hand of Krishna." So the devotee, everyone actually, is completely dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord. This kid is going somewhere. That's his fifth time back and forth. No, it doesn't matter. He's a kid. He can do whatever they want.
Finding his chair.
Then why did he get up? But we'll talk about that later on. The point I'm trying to make is this. Who here, hold your breath. Don't breathe. You're not dependent on anything. You're not dependent. Okay, fine. You're not dependent on air. Hold your breath. How long is that working out for you? How can I was saying the other day, somebody can Google it for me, but they have free breathing, or what is it called? Free diving. How long can they hold their breath? Anyone know? Free diving? It's a couple minutes, I think. I don't know. Somebody Google it. Don't you have you guys all have Google on your phone. Don't tell me you don't. The great oracle of truth. Suppose you can hold your breath 10 minutes. In the grand scheme of things, what's 10 minutes? So, what is our independence? How would it work if there was no gravity? We'd all be bouncing off the walls. It'd be pretty hard serving the feast. You couldn't even keep it on the plate, So the idea...
He has the answer.
What's the answer?
The world record is 24 minutes.
Really? I'm impressed by that, but in the grand scheme of things, how long is that? He said he's definitely coming back as a dolphin. There's no question where that. So there should be the natural state of a reasonable person is to be a little humble. Just to realize that we're actually not the greatest gift to the world. I'm not talking low self-esteem and, we're not talking about that. But we're talking about I knew there was a little kid. There we go. Hello, my nemesis. Let's see how well we do here. But a natural level of happiness, of humility. It says in the Bhagavatam, it's describing the age of Kali. We were talking about this the other day. Does a fish know it's in water? What do you think? It's definitely in water, but does it feel it? Just like we are moving through the atmosphere of this planet, is it barometric pressure? Is how much the atmosphere is pressing down on us? Do you feel that when you stand up? Just like the fish swimming through water, do we feel that we're... But the point is, it's the environment, it's the current we have to deal with. So we are in an atmosphere, a climate of the age of Kali. And one of the symptoms, what does this say? Lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. This is the atmosphere in the age of Kali. Lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. It's said that there's always there's enmity, friction and tension
and animosity amongst natural friends. Prabhupada says become husband and wife, father and son, brother and brother. It's the nature of the age. What is the example of samsara or the forest fire? Is the forest fire set, generally speaking? Anyone know? We got any closet arsonists here? How does the fire in a bamboo forest, that's a big hint. In a bamboo forest, how does the fire start? The wind and the friction. It rubs through it. It's just the wind blows through it. It's the natural. I mean, here there's fires started by lightning, right? Nobody said it. It's the nature of the place. So the nature of this world is to be prideful. Even a pauper is proud of his penny. Prabhupada says puffed up over borrowed plumes. This puffed up's a great word. You know when you cook a chapati, does it stay puffed up? Puri may stay stuffed up if you made the dough right. But does a puri stay puffed up? I mean a chapati? There's always a little hole, then it goes down. So we're so prideful. I mean, not all of you, you're saintly Vaishnavas, but I know what looks in my heart. And the slightest prick, it's all hot air. It's all. So I wanted to talk a little bit, we've already started, about humility. Because it's the antithesis of the present mindset. People are by nature proud. What do they have to be proud about? I can't even make it to Walmart without a GPS and a Boy Scout and a compass. So what do we have to be proud about? There's a story. It's a Guru Nanak story. And a sadhu is visiting a town. Sannyasis traveling. And usually they would set up in the local temple and they would give some Gita Katha, Mahabharata, Ramayana or something, give some Katha in the evenings. So the sadhu's there and he's going to be speaking that evening. And one man tells his friend, hey, this sannyasi is speaking tonight at the temple. It's going to be a nice talk. You should come. Now, this person happened to be a very wealthy man. Now, don't get me wrong. There's arrogant poor people and there's very kind and charitable rich people. But this guy happened to be puffed up about his wealth. And he thought, I'm not going. I've been there before. I know that he's going to say, just depend on Krishna. But in the end, he's going to ask me for something. He's going to ask for some dakshin. I'm not going. I've been fleeced enough. And his friend says, no, he's not like that. He's a very nice sadhu. And there'll be kachoris, samosas, and rasgullas. Jalebis. Yeah, all right, I'm in. The guy agrees to go. And he says, oh, but he's got a plan. He's going to sit behind a column. The sadhu won't see him, and he can sit through anything if there's a nice hot kachoris and jalebis at the end of the thing. So he goes. And the sadhu speaks, quoting Bhagavad Gita, Yokesh mam vahamiham yeyatam mam prapadyante. Krishna supporting in me, aham sarvasha prabhaho. So many things. And it's all nice. But then when he's finished, sure enough, he points to the rich man and says, I want to ask you for something. I need your help. And the sadhu said, the rich man says, I knew it. I knew it. And here we go. So he walks up and the sadhu says, I need your help. All right, what is it? He said, well, sadhu says, I've got this needle and I use it for sewing up my cloth. But I lose it all the time. It's a small thing. Can you just keep this needle for me? And you give it to me in my next life. Keep this needle. Give it to me in my next life. And the rich man says, I can't do that. I can't give a needle to you in my next life. He says, why? It's an insignificant thing. It's easy. Just pin it in your cloth. And the rich man realized that he was so proud of his wealth and his things, but he couldn't even keep track of a needle. Anybody know what does a needle cost? Can you buy a single needle? I think you have to buy a pack, isn't it? A $1 or $2, and you buy a pack. Get it on Amazon and discount. So my point is that the rich man realized that I can't even take a needle into my next life. What have I got to be so proud of? So I was thinking, although the climate that we're in, the tendency, the nature of Kali Yuga is to be arrogant and proud and puffed up. Okay, and what's the opposite of pride? Humility. So why are we afraid to be humble? I'm going to ask 2 questions. Why are we afraid of being humble? And the other question, well, that is the antithesis. What are the benefits of being humble? Why? Why do we care about being humble? Okay, so what are some concerns about being humble?
People may use us.
People what?
People may use us.
Yeah, exactly. People may use us. We may be exploited. What's another?
Seen as a weakness.
Huh?
Seen as a weakness.
I still didn't hear.
Seen as a weakness.
Seen as a weakness. Yeah. What's wrong with you? Anybody think of another?
You can try to dominate us.
Yeah, people can try to dominate us. I was thinking of another one the other day. Yeah, people will think that, what's wrong with you? Are you weak? You're too much dependency on others, stand up on your own 2 feet, So there's people may exploit us, may take advantage of it. They may, if I'm actually humble, they may not think much of me. If I don't blow my own horn, then who's going to glorify me? So there are misunderstandings, but there's why we want to avoid it. Okay, to counter that, what are some good qualities that come from being humble? There's no wrong answer. If you'll still get prasadam, don't worry, we'll bounce you out. I actually made a list the other day, but I want to hear from you guys. What are some benefits of being humble? Friends. You go, what is it? A friend of all living entities. One that learns to, if you're pride, Sari told me that, he was traveling with Prabhupada all the time, as Prabhupada's servant. And, Prabhupada was just, he could be friendly with anybody. It was the whatever it was. So he said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, everyone likes you. And Prabhupada immediately responded, because I like everyone. And people can pick up on that. If you're a humble person and you appreciate other people's good qualities, you live in a much happier world. If your business is finding fault, and when Prabhupada was that's a whole other story, but Prabhupada was negotiating with the Dinapan Press. Dinapan Press was one of the largest printing firms in the world, and they're one of the largest in Japan at the time. So Prabhupada was negotiating the price for printing the Krishna book and the Nectar of Devotion. So it's a whole story. But at one point, the executives of Dinapan Press had left Prabhupada alone in the room with Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and they went out to consider Prabhupada's offer. So they left him with a minder there, some junior exec, who didn't speak much English. But Prabhupada asked him, what is your goal in life? And everyone in the business meeting, you've seen they do this. Everybody hands out their business card and everybody gets a stack so you know how to get a hold of everybody. So all the business execs, senior executives, they put their cards out on the table. And the junior exec took all the cards and collected them into a stack. Because he didn't speak much English, but visual, you can get the picture. So he took everybody's card, put it in a stack. And then he ceremoniously took his card out and put it on top. So that was the goal of his life, to get on top. So, but to maintain that, I mean, it's a whole lot of work. Botox, I mean, we could go down the list, but I mean, I've never had Botox. I don't plan on it, but I understand it's not a very pleasant experience. People get facelifts and they can't smile anymore, or dye your hair. I'm not picking on women because men do it too. But who's got the biggest muscles, or you see these guys. It's freezing, especially in California, Southern California, by the ocean. It's freezing cold out there, and they're jogging around without a t-shirt on, so they can show off their muscles. I mean, women wear high heels. I mean, that's no fun. So, I mean, to maintain that charade, that false image, it's a whole lot of work. You got to compete with other people. It's a dog-eat-dog world. So, okay, just to give all that up. I'm just a humble Vaishnava. I'm just as das anu das, 1,000 times removed. It's so peaceful. You have to prove it. Krishna loves us no matter, what is it? Bhavagrihi Janardanam. The Krishna's in everyone's heart. And he knows how. One of the biggest, I'll finish that point. But Krishna loves us. Think about it. We have done so many stupid, offensive things in the course of our lifetimes. We've had so many lives. We've done so many stupid. And Krishna, what they call that, there's a famous book, 1984 it's called. Anyway, and the point is that there comes a point that material love will break. So, tough love. Your kid becomes a drug addict, who steals everything out of your house. There comes a time you just change the locks. I'm done. People get divorced. I'm just done. I'm not advocating all that, but I'm saying, but you think about it, all the things that we've done, foolish and offensive, and Krishna continues to stay within our heart. Bhavagrihi Janardana. He knows the bhav, or the mood of everyone's heart. Krishna sees us as we are and doesn't reject us. You get married and you find out that your spouse eats crackers in bed and snores, or they're kind of, hey, you got to shape up here. So, but whatever that's not an excuse to continue in that way. But who loves us more than our mother and our father, who knows everything about us, even those deep secrets of ourself? Krishna knows, and he still loves us, and he's still trying to help us. Suhridam sarvabhutanam. He's the best of friends. So we don't have to pretend to be something. Jayadvaita Maharaj told me this. He was in the New York, JFK. He was going somewhere overseas, and he wanted to change some money. So he had some local currency for whatever when he arrived. And, he's a nice sannyasi. He's dressed in his sannyasa cloth. And typical New Yorker, they couldn't care less. You could drop dead in front of them. They're going on. So she looked up from her cage or, window for a minute and saw, nice tilak and sika and, saffron cloth. So she said to Jayadvaita Maharaj, that's what I like about you, Hare Krishna people. You are what you pretend to be. She meant to say you are what you're supposed to be. But, she got to kind of, you are what you pretend to be. But we don't have to pretend to be anything with Krishna. Krishna, if we do patram pushpam palam toyam, You offer with love. There's that, was it Vidura and Duryodhana? And Krishna went to Duryodhana's house, and there was a whole feast, but it wasn't offered in love. It was all to impress and to get Krishna on his side. Krishna didn't eat a thing. And he went to Vidura's house, and Vidura was so overwhelmed with love and ecstasy. He was, he offered some fruit, and he threw away the bananas and offered the peels. And Krishna took a bite, because it was full of love. It was saturated with love. So we don't have to pretend to be anybody. We don't have to impress anybody. Who cares what they think? I care what Krishna thinks. That I care what the Vaishnavas think. That matters. But so that's another benefit of humility. And I think I have a few more. Whoops. Well, let's take a look here. Oh, that was something else I wanted to say. Okay, here's some other, the ability to take good advice. If you're proud, Prabhupada tells a story. There's a man. Okay, this is the tree, okay? We got a tree and we got a branch. And a guy is sitting here. You can answer me. What's wrong with this? The man is sitting here. Here's a trunk. Here's a branch. The man is sitting here. He's a woodcutter and he's sawing here. Is that a good plan? Okay, so his friend comes along and says, hey, you're going to saw the branch, you're going to fall and break your head. So with pride, the inability to take good advice, the man says, well, what, did you go to wood cutting you? I mean, what do you do? Run along. So sure enough, the guy's, the branch snaps, he falls, he bumps his head. The next day, he meets his friend, he's got a big bandage on his head because he banged his head. But he doesn't admit that he was wrong. This is Prabhupada's story. He says to the man who told him, hey, that's not going to work. He said, oh, you must be a great astrologer. You can see the future. He doesn't want to admit that he's wrong. So the ability to take good advice, take instruction. Who are you to tell me what, So that's one thing. And I was thinking of another one. And the willingness to change. I mean, in my role as a priest, we have to counsel people. And sometimes, I've had couples. They are at each other's neck. They're just going to want to get remarried to somebody else. They're going to have they may have a different person with a different set of problems. It's not that they're not going to have problems. And hey, why don't you just be kind to each other? Try it. You might find out that it works wonders. Be tolerant, be kind. What's the big issue that you're so stirred up about? So my point is that the willingness to change. Hey, I can grow, I can change, I could be a better version of myself. But the inability to hear, the inability to take instruction, the inability to take good advice, the unwillingness to change, it's a tough way to live. It's very unhappy, actually. So let's see, what else? And then we'll move on. But Prabhupada gives the example of pride. There's another example, in addition to our woodcutter. So two men are traveling together, and they're going on Tirtha Yatra, or they're walking somewhere. And they stop for the evening, and they're going to cook their dinner. And they want to lower a bucket into the river and get some water and cook. So they got the rope, and they've got to cut it. So one man says, hey, I got a Swiss Army knife. I'll cut it. His friend says, no, Swiss, it's going to fray the rope. I got a pair of scissors. I got some German scissors. I'm like, no. My Swiss Army. So they argue, scissors, knife, which is going to work better? Now the scissors advocate is a skinny little guy. Rope advocate's a big guy. And finally they get so heated that the rope advocate says, if you don't agree with me that this, scissors are better, I'm going to drown you. I think I got it backwards. So the knife advocate says, if you don't agree that a knife is better than scissors, I'm going to hold you under the river and drown you. The guy says, no, my scissors, they're sharper than it. So the big guy, the knife advocate, holds the scissor guys under the water. He's going to drown them. Even though the little guy is underwater, about to drown, he puts one hand up and goes like this. He's a diehard scissors advocate, So you think about it. I mean, it's so much work. So there are advantages to being humble. And Krishna describes in the Gita the symptoms of knowledge, and he gives a whole, and I'm going to read them in a minute. But it all begins, the first quality, and Prabhupada describes in the purport, it's the key for opening the door to wisdom. The key for opening the door to wisdom, believe it or not, is humility. It's the first quality that Krishna lists as humility. So again, we're not talking low self-esteem. We're not talking about being exploited. We're not talking, but to just realize I'm a small living entity. I was, who knows what I was in a past life. I was Lord Indra. I could have been Indra Gopa. Prabhupada tells another story that a king is sitting on his throne. He's having darshan or whatever, what do they call that? The bar or whatever. The king used to give advice. So, huh? Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So, a little mosquito flies in the window and he lands on the king's shoulder. And he looks out from the vantage point of the king's shoulder and he says, look at this. Everyone's bowing down to me. Everyone's fanning me because he's sitting on the king's shoulder on the throne. But he's thinking, I'm a big guy. Look how important I am. Look at. And so like cats purr, evidently mosquitoes, they bzz, bzz, bzz when they're happy. So this mosquito's sitting there looking out from his vantage point of sitting on the king's shoulder, thinking that everyone's offering respects to him. He begins bzz, bzz, bzz. The king, he's finished, So time and tide wait for no one. So I wanted to read those qualities. If we learn to become humble by thinking, and Prabhupada points out, Arjuna, Vaishnav means humility, but it doesn't mean that you're inactive and you can't stand up and you don't have, strength. Prabhupada said there's two pillars that hold up the Vedic ethos or the Vedic worldview, ethos, culture, values. And they're the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. And Prabhupada says one of the prime heroes of the Mahabharata is Arjuna. And of the Ramayana is Hanuman. Were they weak-willed, Hanuman and Arjuna? They were powerful. They stood for principle. So it doesn't mean that you don't stand for principle. But many things in life are simultaneously one and different. We like to see black and white, binary, but things are nuanced. So how to be humble and also stand for principle. So if we can do that by understanding that Krishna's in control of everything, ultimately everything's happening by Krishna's mercy. There's no real, I'll be graphic. Probably the only thing to remember from what I said today. Prabhupada was on a morning walk in Beverly Hills. And Prabhupada, Bhavananda told me this. And Prabhupada came to where there was a place where on a lawn a dog had done its business. Prabhupada swung his cane, and Prabhupada said, which is better, wet side or dry side? The devotees immediately split into two camps. One was arguing the dry side is easier to clean up. The other saying wet side's better, it's fertile. I don't know what. But they split it, and they had an enthusiastic argument. And after letting it go on for a few minutes, Prabhupada just laughed and said, wet side, dry side, it's stool. You know, it's the same thing. There's no benefit wet side. So it doesn't mean we shouldn't do good in the world. It doesn't mean we do our duty. Don't, save me the emails. But the point is that in the ultimate issue, I was thinking about it the other day. May it never happen, but suppose, and most bedrooms, by the way, are on the second floor of a house. So suppose there's a fire in your house and it starts on the ground floor, and you have to run out. As you're running out of the house, as if it's being consumed by fire, you run through the kitchen. Do you stop and think, would you stop and think, young man, hang on a minute, the house is on fire, kitchen's gonna burn up, I better make a sandwich. I'm gonna get hungry. Now I'm gonna minus the kitchen, I'm making myself a sandwich. Does any sane person stop running out of a burning building to make a sandwich? You think, no, I'm getting out of here. So here's another example. In the old black and white movies, they've got the damsel in distress who's tied up to the railway tracks. The rail, the train is barreling down. So suppose you Johnny Be Good, you show up and here's this lady tied to the railway tracks. And you say, help me, help me. She says, right. Mr. Be Good shows up and says, I can help you. You must be very uncomfortable lying there on that train track. Here's a pillow. You idiot, the train's coming. Can't you hear it? Right, that's probably quite distracting. Here's some Bose headsets, What are your favorite tunes? You idiot, I've been yelling for an hour, and you're the one that I wind up with? She says, your voice must be hoarse. Here's a nimbupani, because you're tied up. Here's a curved straw, no problem. You got your pillow, you got your Bose headset, you got your nimbupani. Problem solved? What do you think? Huh? Mataji, problem solved? No, get me off the track. So if you think about it, every time I am, Krishna says, the destroyer of all things. So if I'm strapped to time and on the wheel of samsara, and death is the only thing that's certain is death and taxes. And now with Trump, maybe some people will get out of taxes, but you're not going to get out of death. So that's intelligent. To realize, so my point is that to realize our actual position, and be able to take good instruction, that's one of the benefits of humility. It's not low self-esteem. It's an honest analysis of our condition. And you can put what does Jesus says? My yoke is light. You take all that heavy weight of false ego. I'm Krishna's devotee. Krishna loves me. At the end of this life, I'm going to take birth either as in a family of devotees. Great. Pick up where I left off. That'll be fun. Or I'll go back to Godhead. What's not to love? So I wanted to read, and we'll end here. Let's see if there's some questions. So, in the divine qualities, Krishna, there's divine and demonic qualities in the Gita. So here's a list of the divine qualities. And you'll see that many of them rest on this principle of which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Chanadapi Sunishena Tororiva Sahishuna Amanina Manadena Kirtanaya Sadahari. You want to be absorbed in simply remembering Krishna and that happy Satchidananda state, then you got to become humble as a devotee. So here's another benefit from divine and demoniac qualities. And tell me if you'd like to sign up for these qualities. Simplicity. Here's our little friend, right on time. Simplicity, adverse to fault finding, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, forgiveness, freedom from envy, freedom from the passion for honor. So Krishna lists those. If one is actually a humble Vaishnava, these are the qualities we'll be decorated with. I remember I was on a radio station, and the man, they don't understand. We have doctors and lawyers and school teachers and, whatever it may be, all the different types of devotees. But a man was thinking that, to be a devotee means you've got to live in the brahmacharya ashram and one chickpea a day. So what's that? So the man said to Prabhupada, what would happen if everyone became a devotee? Prabhupada said, don't worry. There'll always be fools like you who won't, which completely shut the guy up. But, what will happen? What are you doing for the world? I mean, do they say that to a doctor? He's an oncologist. When you need him, you need him. Do people get on your case? How come you're not a plumber?
My wife
Wait. Yeah, you may have to step inside. Oh, let me see. You're an oncologist. Why aren't you a cardiologist? Why have you focused on just being an oncologist? Well, you got to specialize. Remind me, I'll tell Prabhupada's joke about a specialist. But the point is, you need oncologists, you need dentists, you need plumbers, society is varied. So you also need monks. You need people in the world who are focused on spiritual life, can give you good advice. That's their specialty. Nobody could. Some people, you're just a Hare Krishna. So they don't understand the great benefit. So what happens if the whole world became Krishna conscious? Here's the kind of people you'd meet. Simplicity, adverse to fault finding, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, forgiveness, freedom from envy, and the passion for honor. So to spread Krishna consciousness, and not only is it just dry philosophy, but it's how to do it. It's the methodology. Okay, I'd like to have these qualities. Well, here's how you do it. So it's the greatest benefit because it brings people to this state. And if you have these qualities, it doesn't matter whether you're rich and poor or poor. It doesn't matter whether you live in Timbuktu or Toronto. It doesn't matter. Wherever you are, it's not the conditions that make us happy. It's the consciousness. So there's a little something of the benefit of humility, what it's like and what are the benefits. Okay, we're going to take some questions, but I promise to tell one joke. It's Prabhupada's joke. I heard him tell it. Two men are riding on a train in India. And, I remember, I first went to India in 1973, and they had coal-burning trains. They still had coal-burning trains. Maybe in Bihar, I don't know if they've got any left, but I wouldn't have. But the point is that, coal-burning train. If you open the window, all that black soot comes in. And you get it. So they got the window shut. Because they got the window shut, those little fans, they're like, Chanakya Pandit says, a donkey's tail. It doesn't shoot flies, and it doesn't cover its rear end. What's the use of it, So you got those little fans that they useless, So it's hot. So finally they can't take it anymore. They open the window, and sure enough, a cinder blows in, and one of the guys gets a cinder in his eye. That's painful. You ever, something in your eye? It's extremely painful. So what to do? So his friend goes out looking for a doctor. And they go through all the different bogies, all the different compartments. They can't find it. Finally, the last compartment, it's a bunch of doctors going to a medical convention. This one's an endocrinologist, this one's a nephrology, this one's a cardiologist, this one's an oncologist, so many, can't find an eye doctor. Finally, there's one ophthalmologist. It's Prabhupada's joke. They bring the man up. He comes and he looks at the man with his cinder in the eye and he says, "It's in the left eye. I'm a right eye." So we can know so many things, but what happens at the time of death? Where am I going? What is real happiness? Those are questions that matter. So there it is, something about humility. Thank you very much. Now, does anybody have a question? Now, we mentioned this yesterday. What happened? Oh, you have right off the bat. You should need some prodding. Thank you very much.
Question?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, Maharaj? Thank you so much for the wonderful.
Yeah, I appreciate all that. Cut to the chase.
I'm confused about the humility and the qualities of the devotee basically, because there are very wonderful qualities. I mean, you were also mentioning the humility, forgiveness, and all these things. But where do we draw a line? As initially you asked a question, what are the disadvantages of being humble and all these things? So devotees answered very nicely that somebody might.
I got it.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
I got it.
How do we understand that?
Can I answer?
Where do we draw a line that? How do we know that Krishna is pleased with our humility, or what level?
I have an idea where the train's going. Can I answer?
Because sometimes I have seen devotees in my personal life. My husband himself, over humility.
You tell me when it's my turn.
I don't have humility, Maharaj, but I have seen some people.
Yeah. I got it.
Lots and lots of trouble.
Does she have a plug? I'm joking.
Thank you so much.
No, it's a very good question. I'm glad you asked. It's a good question. Hold on a second. Sudam Maharaj at the time, he told me, he asked Prabhupada, if you ever saw Prabhupada arrive at an airport, and probably you've seen on video or something, it was just a fantastic scene. Hundreds of devotees, a dozen madungas, dozen kartals, sprinkling rose water, throwing flower petals, distributing prasadam. It was just, devotees just took over. It was an amazing scene. So Sudam said to Prabhupada, he said, Prabhupada, sometimes when I'm walking with you, I feel proud. But we were supposed to be humble and meek and humble. Prabhupada said no. Prabhupada said you can feel there's a Vaishnava pride. It's a quiet certainty. Prabhupada said that we know. Prabhupada said you can think that by the grace of my spiritual master, I am no longer a fool and a rascal. So there's that kind of pride that, that I'm, by Krishna's grace, I'm no longer under the modes of ignorance and passion. That I know who. Prabhupada said only a devotee knows who is who and what is what. We know who is who and what is what. And it breeds that quiet certainty that I'm serving Krishna. I see everyone as a servant of Krishna. I'm a servant of the servant, 1,000 times removed. But it's not timidity, it's not uncertainty, it's not knowing what to do and who is who and what is what. There's a quiet confidence that a devotee has. Prabhupada writes in one purport, and spoken as a sannyasi, Prabhupada said that the young married couple, devotee couple, they have to learn how to take advice from their relatives. Oh, you should do that. You need a bigger house. You need a new car. You got to do that. You got to. Prabhupada said they have to learn the art of saying yes, 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 and ignoring everything they say. So devotee, I mean, we're polite, but we're not gonna, I've got to make millions of dollars, or I've got to, we're not interested. We're satisfied because we're full of the taste, bhakti ras. Now, I'm not giving up bhakti ras for TikTok or I don't know what other foolishness there's out there. Not doing it. Not interested. So we are certain in what we're doing. We're not bewildered, uncertain, stumbling. We shouldn't let people exploit us. We're not talking about being exploited if we have, But devotee, things are not binary. Again, it's not black or white. The cornerstone of our philosophical precepts, which filters through everything, is a Chinta Beta Beta Tattva, simultaneously one and different. We have to know how to be humble, understanding our actual position, and at the same time have that quiet confidence of a devotee and not be exploited. But we worry about things so much. I'll give you another example by Prabhupada. Who can I pick on? I'll pick on you. That's what you get for sitting in front. Touch your nose. No. Touch your nose. Touch your nose. Yeah, you, touch your nose. No. You don't have to touch your nose. Prabhupada said. Prabhupada said we make everything so complicated. You're right. Just touch your nose. What's the big deal? So just to be a devotee, we do our duty. What is it? Utsahan nishchaya dharya tat karma pavartate. So to have an honest occupation, so just peaceful, quiet, honest occupation, be happy. Does that answer your question? Yeah, I mean, I can't, everybody's got specifics, and I'm not, I don't have a crystal ball and say, actually, you should buy a hundi. Don't get that. It doesn't work like that. But you have to understand the principle. Is that okay? It's simultaneously you don't get exploited, but you're peaceful and confident that you're a devotee. And the real thing is we lean to the positives. If just like Prabhupada, everyone likes you. Why? Anyone remember why? Hari Sari said, Prabhupada, everyone likes you. What was the reason? Because Prabhupada liked everyone. If you try to be nice to people, I mean, you don't, like I say, you got a mugger. Oh, here, take my wallet. You want my gold fillings? We're not talking about that, But a basic kindness and accommodation and tolerance. I tell you something that saves me occasionally when I'm in my saner moments. I figure I've offended so many people in my life. And I'm not a patient person. I'm not so many things, And if people can tolerate me, who am I to not tolerate them? They've got some little foible or, whatever person. Do I really need to get so worked up about it? Well, Jesus says, interestingly enough, don't criticize the splinter in someone's eye for the mote in your own. In other words, you've got a little speck. Of course, we just talked about a speck in the eye, but I'm criticizing somebody else for a small fault in their heart. Well, look at my own heart. I'll tell you a great answer. You know Niranjana Swami? One of the great saints. I mean, we've got some Roma Padmaraj. We've got some really grandfather Bhishmas. We've got some really you can find fault with this and that, and sure enough, not everybody's perfect. But it's a fact that we have some really saintly senior devotees. So, I was sitting with Niranjana Swami one time. We were in Mayapur. And this devotee came up, and was this man was a perfect trifecta of criticism. The sannyasis are just, they're on the banquet circuit. They're just traveling around getting a good meal and collecting money. And these householders, all they do is think about themselves. And, the brahmacharis, they're just lazy. They're, what are they doing, And then he went off on everybody, temple presidents, sannyasis, all the pujaris, they're just ringing bells and eating all the maha. I was thinking, I was actually thinking, because I was sitting with Naranja, I wasn't going to give it to the guy. I like I said, I'm not very patient. But I was sitting with Naranja Swami, I thought I better control my tongue here. So, and I was thinking the only aspect of ISKCON this man has not criticized is the cows. And all of a sudden he said, and that New Vrindavan and ISKCON. And I thought, this guy's a perfect storm. He's gone off on every single element in ISKCON. So I was curious, how is Naranjana Swami going to answer this? So the guy finally ran out of steam, after offending every possible. And Naranjana Swami said to him, he said, I can understand that you are expert at finding fault. He said, I think if you study your own heart, you will find sufficient subject matter. Is that cool or what? And I thought, oh, way to go, Maharaj. Because he didn't directly confront him. But he made the right point, that we're all so busy criticizing everybody else. But, look at our own heart. That's going to keep us busy enough. Voltaire says, tend to your own garden. So busy about everybody else. So it's not black or white. It's nuanced. It's simultaneously one and different. Devotees are strong for Krishna. They're assertive for Krishna. They're confident what they're doing with their life under the orders of their spiritual master. At the same time, they're tolerant of other people and kind to other people. They think but by the grace of God go I. Who might be so heavy with people? And if we live in that way, lo and behold, we become happy. Okay?
Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a good question. Yes, sir.
I would like to add what Guru Purushottam Ji, he in his talk told us TME, that is, you tolerate, if not mitigate, that means try to talk it over, if not emigrate out of
You what?
it. Tolerate, mitigate, emigrate.
Immigrant. There's always a door.
So, either you can tolerate whatever she faces or he faces, or you mitigate by mutual.
Yeah, you try to work it out. Yeah.
Or in that case, you emigrate. You get out of that situation.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you, sir.
I learned.
Okay, do we have another question? Very good. No?
I have a question.
Alrighty.
So,
This is the last one.
in the same line of thought with the example you gave with the damsel in distress in the railroad.
Yeah,
situation. I'm thinking in terms of helping devotees in ISKCON just with where they're at, meeting people where they're at. Is it more important in a sense to get it more concise? Is it more important to focus on what we're taught in terms of focus on the chanting? The chanting is the panacea. Ultimately, that will bring.
I don't quite follow the question.
I guess speaking for myself, would it be worthwhile to address people meeting them where they're at in terms of mental health?
I don't understand what does that mean? Does that mean as opposed to what? They're really I don't quite follow the question, but anyone else? You got the question?
I think he's saying rather than trying to help with a problem for the specific situation versus potentially a higher principle, like, you know, your problem is at the level.
You know, you're standing in the grocery line, and there's an old lady in front of you, and the bottom falls out of her groceries and all over the floor. Do you think, well, she's just going to go home and cook sinful, Krishna says, karma, so, you know, I don't want to help her do that, so you leave her standing there with all the groceries on the floor because, you know, you don't want to get implicated in her karma and help her. No, just help the old lady with her groceries. So, I mean, you know, you've got to give a specific, but in the ultimate issue, the only problem in the world, according to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the only shortage is a shortage of Krishna consciousness. So yeah, we want to push people forward and help them understand Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, you haven't really solved their problem. You just prolonged their suffering. As I said to you the other day, you're in a boxing ring. Suppose there's two guys. There's a skinny little Badrinarayan Swami, and there's the 2-ton gorilla. You know, and I'm just being pulverized by this Hulk. And so, you know, you ring the bell, I'm back in my corner, you give me some smelling salt, you patch me back, and you say, "You're doing great, killer, go back in there." You can't. And I'm just being pulverized. If you patch me up to go back in the same arena and being pulverized, are you really my friend? Are you helping me? Talk about our friend who said exit. Say, hey man, call it quits. You know, get out of the ring. So what's really helping people? Prabhupada's classic example. One man's in jail as a pickpocket, and he's a C-class prisoner. Another man was the prime minister, was caught in some, political treason. And he's a class A prisoner. But they're both on death row. If the guy breaks out of the C, and because he's a C-class prisoner, it's bare bones, it's, you know, a stone shelf, it's bread and water. And the prime minister, the A-class prisoner, he's got a nice suite, he's got a personal assistant with him, he's getting a 5-course gourmet meal. But they're both on death row. If I break out of prison C, bare bones, and I break in to the A class with the suite, have I solved my problems? Have I made a better start? We're both on death row. So everybody's on death row in this world. So on one, it's not black or white. We know that. We realize that unless they become Krishna conscious, they're not going to solve their problem. But, you know, you ever had a funnel and you try to pour too much water through it? What happens? Kids don't try this at home. It overflows. There's only so much that can go through it. So sometimes, you know, you have to be smart. You have to know your audience. Can they understand? Can you grab some guy on downtown Portland? Say you're going to hell, you're sinful, stop eating meat, you know, you're going to... You know, so by the way, there's so many magazines out there. There's a magazine called Walking, by the way. I mean, you step after step. I mean, how complicated can it be? But, you know, anyway, it's called Walking. I saw it the other day. So, but we get on our farm, our Goshala, we get a magazine. It's about cows. I forget what it's called. Cowman's Journey, a journal or something like that. And the devotees showed me on one of there's an advertisement there for some kind of spray that you spray on and then you brush the cows and it helps get rid of parasites and stuff. You know, it's nice. It's good. The cows like to be brushed. Okay. So, but in there it says, did you know, which I didn't, and I bet you don't know, that for every square inch of a cow, On the average, there's 2,000 hairs. For every square inch of a cow, there's 2,000 hairs. Now it says in Manu Samhita, if you kill a cow, you have to take birth for every hair on the body of a cow. Now somebody here who's got nothing else to do can figure out what the circumference, the surface area of a cow is, divided by, how many square inches that is, and then multiply by 2,000. And I saw another figure that somebody sent me, what the average American eats in the course of their lifetime. And it's like 150 whole cows. It's like 75 pigs. It's so many chickens. I mean, what is it? Bernard Shaw said, the human mouth is a crematorium or a graveyard. See what we're shoveling in there, the average citizen. So, but you grab them by the collar, So you have to figure out how much can they take. You have to know your audience. How much are they ready for? How much can you push them? And the best way to influence others is set an example. So don't be Jesus Christ. I don't know why I'm thinking about him, but he says, I would have you hot or cold, lukewarm I spew from my mouth. So be real. You don't want, I don't want to upset them. I don't want to, we got to accommodate them. Okay, that's true on one hand. But on the other hand, Prabhupada says if you keep adding water to milk, after a certain point, it's no longer milk. There was, in 1973, I was in Bombay. I was in Mumbai when it was Bombay. And they used to have what they called the Bombay Milk Scheme. And the Bombay Milk Scheme was legal amount of how much water you could put in it, how much powdered milk, how much buffalo milk. To call it milk, there was a certain amount you could distort it. So, you can distort Krishna consciousness, everybody likes you, but you said nothing of substance. Prabhupada said you don't blow on a boil, you gotta lance it. So, you gotta be smart, you gotta learn. We'll end here. We'll take your question. But Prabhupada, a devotee wrote to Prabhupada, it's in Prabhupada's letters book, which is just a treasure chest of far out instruction, accurate, wonderful understanding of human nature. So Prabhupada's letters book, I cannot recommend enough reading it. So, and it's the whole history of ISKCON, it's just fantastic. So, a devotee wrote to Prabhupada, and they sent about 24, maybe close to 30 questions about Tulsi. All kinds of questions. You can see the letter. And Prabhupada answered about 6 of them. And if you look at the list, they're the key questions. She needs sun, she needs water, she needs good soil, bang, 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 bang. Here's the 6 questions. And then Prabhupada writes in the letter, and for all the other questions, use your common sense. But Prabhupada didn't end there, knowing us oh so well. Prabhupada's third thing, first off, here's the answers for the main one. Okay, for the others, use your common sense. And then Prabhupada said, and if you don't have common sense, ask someone who does. That pretty much covers it, So you watch what the older devotees do, senior devotees. Don't go mental. And, don't water it down so it has no efficacy, no effect. But know your audience. Can they take it? Okay? Now, I promised I'd give you a short answer, so I promised I would. Yes. And then we're done.
Could you just elaborate on how do we assess our level of humility?
Well, the material nature will do its job. My experience is that when you get puffed up, I was giving a class many years ago, not that I'm not still puffed up, but I was giving a class to some college students, and I was sitting on the Vyasasana cross-legged. And I was thinking, I'm giving some good answers. And these students, they seem to be taking it and impressed. I'm doing a great job here. And when we finished, I got up off the Vyasasan to, mingle with the guests. I didn't realize that both legs had fallen asleep. And I crumpled like a puppet with the strings crossed. I literally could not get off the floor. Two of the students had to come and help me up. And I was thinking, Krishna just took care of my pride. So my experience is that we're too puffed up. If the material nature doesn't remind us, the devotees, my experience is, are not sparing in their advice. Devotees will usually point it out. So, but you have to be open to it. Like a radar dish, you have to pray this much to Krishna. Krishna, please help me. Krishna, show me what I need to do. Krishna's our partner. It's a very real, partnership with Krishna in spiritual life. Like a glass has to have a handle, a cup. So when we pray to Krishna, Krishna, help me become a devotee. How can I advance? You pray to Krishna. It's like creating that handle. It gives Krishna something to grab onto. And Krishna will reveal it to you. Tesham satyayuktam bhajitam pratipurvakam dadami bodhi yogam tam yeno mambu priyantate. Krishna will give us the intelligence. But you have to be open to it. That's my experience. And you chant nice japa. It makes it, I tell you, japa is the root of everything. Peaceful, accurate, clear japa. Not on a clicker while you're driving the car and got a cup of tea there and you look in your GPS. That's not japa. So if we make our heart receptive and pray to Krishna, I'm talking 50 years experience now. Prayer actually works. And when we ask Krishna, please help me advance, he does. He gives us object lessons in so many circumstances. So don't worry. And that's the main thing. I heard Prabhupada give this example, and it's a great one. And I promise we'll end here. Does a child, when it's learning to walk, a young child, do they just get up and say, hey, Mom, I'm going on a marathon, see you tomorrow? Is that how a baby learns how to walk? How do they learn how to walk? Okay, after the crawling stage, what happens? They get up and fall down. They get up and fall down. Now, Prabhupada said, what is the one thing, assuming the child's healthy, what is the one thing that guarantees that child is getting up and falling down, getting up and falling? What's the one thing that guarantees that child will never learn how to walk? What's the one thing that guarantees the child will never learn how to walk? If he doesn't get up. As long as you get up, as long as you get back in the game. So, this is not an excuse or a rationale. Krishna, look how Krishna dealt with Bharat Maharaj. So Krishna can be heavy. Krishna plays hardball sometimes, Prabhupada said, I'll forgive you once, I'll forgive you twice. Then Prabhupada said, the third time I take off my shoe. Good whack in the head, So I'm not advocating, abuse or anything, but, you understand my point. So the Krishna will help us. And Krishna consciousness works. We've got the methodology. It's given by the Goswamis. What is the other side of the coin? Atyahara priyasya prajapaniya. There's the 6 things that will help you advance. I think 6 things that from Rupa Goswami's Nectar of Instruction. Everything is there. They may have gone back to Godhead, but they've left the boat of their instruction to cross over the ocean of birth and death. So if you just stay in the game, there was a devotee, a Bhakta, named Bhakta Irving in San Diego. Did you ever meet Bhakta Irving? He finally went on Padayatra and got initiated by Lokanath Maharaj. But this guy was an alcoholic. And that's one of the hardest things to give up. And he'd move in the temple, he'd be okay for a couple months, then he'd fall off the wagon, he'd get back, you know. One time I caught him, we made fresh apple juice for the Sunday feast. It fermented. He kept it as for like apple hard cider. It's like, go get Manischewitz, you know. So it's not going to work, you know. So my point being that if you, so Irving was an alcoholic and he kept falling off the wagon. And then, and you know, he'd just become homeless. We're chanting in Balboa Park. It's a nice park in San Diego. Irving comes up. He's obviously, you know, he's got that horrible breath from drinking and smoking cigarettes. He's got matted hair with leaves in it. He's obviously sleeping in the park. Guna Maharaj asked him, Irving, what happened? We were so happy as a devotee, you know. So where are you living? Irving said, I'm living in the park. Guna Maharaj, so Maharaj said, move back into the temple. I can't do it. Well, Irving, you're killing yourself. Stop drinking. No, I can't do that. Well, at least give up cigarettes. You're hacking away. No, I can't do that. Maharaj said, where are you living? He was living in the woman's bathroom at Balboa Park. Maharaj said, at least move into the men's bathroom. You know? So we can all do something. We all, as long as you get back in the game and you do something, a step forward to improve, ultimately Krishna will help you. And you'll find that which a blind man can see the stars in the sky by the mercy of Mahaprabhu, a lame man can cross the Himalayas, and a dumb man can sing poetry by Mahaprabhu's mercy. Okay? It works. Just stay in the game. Just get up. Don't lament about falling down, but get up. Okay, we can end there. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Badrinarayan Swami Maharaj ki jai.